It's a spell to his feet. He does it inside around.
I mean, unbelievable. And listen, we got to win the rematch.
Do you think you'll do it again? Is there a clause?
Rematch, you know, I can't imagine him not triggering it. You know, and he needs to be better. He will be better.
Dillian wanted to continue. The referee, of course, called it off. Do you feel that was the right call for that to happen?
Oh, I think, yes, without a doubt, definitely. He made the right call. I think that Dill should have stayed down and taken the 8 count, then got up. But he bounced right back up, and his equilibrium was still off. And I told him, I said, you know, you couldn't stand up straight. The referee couldn't.
Dillian Whyte has finally broken his silence after suffering a brutal knockout loss to 20-year-old sensation Moses Itauma. But instead of accepting defeat, the former heavyweight contender launched into a tirade against the referee, calling the stoppage a robbery. Whyte insists
it's something emotional. When I talk about it, you know, I feel like crying that, you know.
He beat the count and was ready to continue. Yet the reality is undeniable. Moses floored him clean. The referee's intervention didn't rob Whyte of glory. It spared him from a much worse beating. For years, Whyte has been admired for his grit and fighting heart.
Everyone's talking about, you know, Dillian having an injury, and I think Dave probably got wind of that. I thought that we're just going to press it early and see what we're given. And, you know, he was caught quite early on the back of the head and on the side.
But this time, excuses were all he had left. Hiding behind controversy cannot erase what millions witnessed: a young prospect dismantling a fading veteran in devastating fashion. Whyte's brother Dean was quick to come to his defense, claiming injuries had hampered Dillian's performance. According to him, Whyte wasn't himself on the night, but no matter how real
You know what I mean? I didn't hear anything like that, so excuse me, I really couldn't elaborate on that, to be honest with you.
or exaggerated those injuries may have been, they don't change the fact that Itauma tore through him with ease. If Whyte was truly that compromised, he should never have stepped into the ring. Using it as an excuse afterward only magnified the humiliation. Trainer Buddy McGirt spoke for much of the boxing world when he laughed off Whyte's robbery claims as nonsense.
Your career, at the end of your career, you'll look at your bank balance and say to yourself, you know what, it was worth it. Dillian Whyte can look at his bank balance and say, last night's fight was worth it. Did he do it for the money? He probably did. You know, Moses Itauma is a huge name, and it would have been a massive scalp to have had, but it was never going to.
He called the excuses embarrassing, reminding everyone that the knockout was clean, the count fair, and the result unquestionable. McGirt even chuckled at Whyte's stubborn defiance because deep down everyone, including Whyte himself, knew what had happened. And the fact that Whyte has since backtracked in interviews offering apologies.
That good. I thought Dillian shaped up well. I thought he was in fantastic nick. But when you're at your twilight years and you're working on your weight, etc., it's taxing. It's taxing on yourself. And
shows the truth. He knows Itauma smashed him. Former world champion Duke McKenzie didn't hold back either. In his view, Whyte wasn't fighting for glory at all. He was fighting for a payday. His performance, McKenzie said, was pathetic. A shadow of the fighter he once was. To get flattened so easily and then cry robbery, he argued, was laughable. Moses Itauma's dominance highlighted not only Whyte's decline but his inability to compete at the top level anymore. Trainer Mark Tibbs attempted to offer some respect, noting that Whyte at least came into camp in decent condition. But even Tibbs couldn't ignore the obvious. Once the bell rang, Whyte looked dreadful. Age, injuries, wear and tear, all of it showed. He was slow, his timing gone, his reflexes dulled, and his chin couldn't handle the power of a
mojo from Dillian. But listen, it's very difficult when you're 38 years old. You've been out in the ring for a couple of years and you've just had that Tete fight, and you fight a brilliant young sharp fighter. We said that, you know, unless he gets into the fight, it's going to be a disastrous start for him, and it was more than a disastrous start.
Would you want to see Dillian retire?
Yeah, 100%.
What next for Moses? Because there was talk about Usyk and
I wanted to see him in with a live, active heavyweight, you know, because he's definitely good.
20-year-old with speed and precision. For Tibbs, the robbery talk was not just misguided, but embarrassing. Itauma had made Whyte look finished. Promoter Eddie Hearn was even more blunt. He said flat out that Dillian Whyte should retire. At 38 years old, after years of inactivity, Whyte walked straight into the fire against a young, hungry fighter, and disaster struck within seconds. Hearn had warned before the fight that if Whyte didn't settle quickly, the night could turn ugly. And it did. Instead of facing reality, Whyte pointed fingers at the referee, complaining about a robbery as though he had been denied some glorious comeback moment. But the truth was plain for all to see. Whyte is no longer world level. His body is slower, his reactions dulled, his timing shot, and his chin exposed. Claims of robbery only humiliate him further. Retirement, Hearn.
I thought we would beat Dillian Whyte, but not with that ease. He looked so comfortable, like saying the build-up in the changing room, his ring walk, his whole sort of demeanour once he had actually got into the ring. You know, for a young guy of only 20 years of age, to hold down all that pressure and not show it.
Argued. Isn't just an option, it's the only mercy left. Because if Whyte keeps stepping into the ring with young killers like Itauma, the next fight won't just stop him. It could end very badly. Duke McKenzie summed it up with brutal honesty. Itauma didn't just beat Whyte, he embarrassed him. From the moment they walked out of the dressing rooms, the contrast was clear. Itauma looked calm, composed, and unbothered by the occasion. Whyte, on the other hand, looked like a man whose time had passed. For a fighter once known for his grit, it was a sobering truth. Excuses and blame can't hide what happened. A new generation has arrived, and Dillian Whyte is no longer part of it. Dillian Whyte, on the other hand, looked tense, sluggish, and weighed down by excuses before the first punch was even thrown. Duke McKenzie admitted he expected Moses Itauma to win, but not in such dominant fashion. That spoke volumes. Whyte looked
Listen, you got caught the head on the temple. Yeah. And then after that, it was a long night for him. I'm a bit sad. Because I didn't
broken before the fight began, and when it was over, his cries of robbery rang hollow. Itauma dismantled him without breaking a sweat, while Whyte shuffled around like a man who no longer belonged under the lights. The composure Moses showed at just 20 highlighted the gulf between a rising generation and a fading old guard. Derek Chisora, a longtime rival turned friend, offered his perspective with a mix of honesty and pity. He admitted the temple shot that floored Whyte changed everything. But the long night Chisora described was short-lived, because Itauma never allowed Whyte a chance to recover. Chisora suggested Dillian had been unprepared for a southpaw, even pointing out it was the first time in his long career he had ever faced one. Yet excuses aside, the facts were clear: Whyte was unprepared, outclassed, and humiliated. If you avoid southpaws for your entire career only to be destroyed the first time you meet one, that isn't injustice, it's
way too much for him, and it's going to be, you know, quite a nasty ending for him, a nasty ending to a career. I was worried for Dillian going into that this would be that fight, and it was. I mean, that you don't get as you know, it can't be any worse than that to punctuate a career, to end a career.
Before we talk about what's potentially next for Dillian, let's talk about
poor preparation and decline. Chisora's words carried sadness, almost pity. He didn't want to see Whyte's career end like this, but deep down he knew there was no other way. Itauma made him look old, slow, and irrelevant. Trainer Dave Coldwell was even harsher. He didn't sugarcoat it, he called the fight what it was, the ugly, brutal ending to Whyte's career. Coldwell admitted he feared this exact scenario, and it unfolded before everyone's eyes. Itauma's dominance was so complete that there was no room for debate. For Whyte to scream robbery afterward wasn't just delusional, it was insulting to the intelligence of the fans. As Coldwell put it, Whyte was dropped, outpaced, and outgunned. Everyone watching knew it. This wasn't just another loss. It was the full stop at the end of Whyte's story. There is no comeback from this. Not after a 20-year...
Expected it to finish that quick.
Speed kills, as you know.
Speed kills, and he had but not only the speed, he had the power with that, and the accuracy was on point. I mean, I didn't think it was gonna. I thought it'd be the opposite, where Dillian might win the first couple of rounds with his power, but I think it just shows how strong Itauma is and how powerful he is. He's a big threat.
Old prospect exposed him so completely. What fans saw wasn't a contender, it was a fading fighter clinging to relevance, humiliated on the big stage. Amir Khan, who built his career on speed and timing, summed it up best: speed kills. And that's exactly what Itauma used to humiliate Whyte in record time. Many thought Whyte might at least test the youngster's chin with early power, but instead, it was Whyte who got exposed. Moses' accuracy, sharpness, and destructive timing left him swinging at shadows. Khan admitted he didn't expect the fight to end so quickly, but the outcome was inevitable. When an old, shop-worn fighter steps in against a young prodigy, this is the reality. Whyte can scream robbery all he wants, But how do you call it robbery when you're smashed to pieces inside a single round? This wasn't theft. It was execution. Moses Itauma delivering the knockout blow not only to Whyte's body but to his career and legacy. That wasn't injustice, it was a beating. Amir Khan gave Moses Itauma full credit. At just 20 years old, he's proving he's not hype, but a genuine danger to...
Being knocked out a couple times, wanted to see could he land a punch on this young kid, but he didn't have a chance tonight. He got mowed over, and this is a big win for a young guy. But he got to continue to fight credible opponents, and he got to get tested. He got to fight a young fighter like himself and beat a credible opponent like that, not these old, washed-up fighters that he can only...
Every heavyweight out there. Meanwhile, Dillian Whyte clings to excuses, and with each one, his legacy sinks deeper into embarrassment. Antonio Tarver was even more ruthless. He didn't sugarcoat it, he called Whyte exactly what he is: washed up. In Tarver's words, Whyte was nothing more than target practice for Itauma. With a career defined by knockouts, Whyte stepped in hoping to land one last big shot, but he never even came close. Instead, he was mauled, destroyed, and exposed as the faded fighter he has become. Tarver argued that Itauma won't gain massive credit for beating declining veterans, but the manner of this destruction made a statement. Flattening Whyte so easily showed the gap between a hungry young contender and a man who no longer belongs at the elite level. For Tarver, Itauma's next step must be testing himself against fellow rising fighters, because dispatching the